Welcome to Supernatural Saturdays here on the Bald Brad channel. If you're new, welcome. And second, if you're looking for the Bald Brad show and that political commentary to bring you all the news and information you need to know about, well, folks, that show is Sunday through Friday. On Saturdays, we take time to step away from the politics, the craziness of the world, and dive into the unknown, the supernatural, aliens, UFOs, Bigfoot, the paranormal, all the unexplained we investigate here on Saturdays. As always, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And what we're going to be looking at today is Commander Fravor's episode, story, investigation into what happened on the Nimitz and going after a UFO. Without further ado, let's go ahead and roll into this story here.
These three videos, released by the Department of Defense, have changed the way many people see what we can't explain.
The moment you mention UFO, immediately what comes to mind are little green men, tinfoil hats. That's not at all what we're dealing with.
What are we dealing with?
In 2004, off the coast of California, an F-18 Super Hornet training exercise was suddenly interrupted by a call over the radio that would come to define Commander David Fravor's career.
You know, there's certain things in your life where you just remember in vivid detail what happened. And that's one of them, because it's honestly the strangest, most obscure thing I've ever seen flying.
Fravor, the commanding officer of the Navy's Strike Fighter Squadron 41 and another F-18 scrambled to check out an unusual radar blip 80 miles off the coast.
Look, you think this guy might know a little something about aviation, folks. He's been doing it for roughly 18 years. He's a commander. They don't let idiots fly these things. They're millions and millions of dollars. So his story is very, very credible, which is why a lot of people are focusing on it.
So as we're looking around, the backseater in the other airplane comes up and says, "Hey, Skipper, do you see?" And before he says it, I'm like, "Dude, do you see that?" As soon as we look down, we see the whitewater, and then we see this little white tic-tac. It's pointing north-south, and it's just going forward, back, left, right.
It's just bouncing around?
Yeah, like a ping pong ball.
What was its shape? What was its, what did it look like it was made out of?
Like a perfectly smooth white tic-tac. Or for people that need a bigger visualization, a giant propane tank.
Fravor says the
Weird.
F-18s began circling, Fravor at 20,000 feet, and the so-called tic-tac only about 50 feet above the surface of the water.
And I say, "Hey, I'm gonna go check this thing out." And the other pilot stays and says, "Hey, I'm gonna stay up high." And then it starts coming up.
He has some balls to do that, folks. If you're unfamiliar, they didn't have weapons on them. They were just doing kind of a training, a simulation with some other fighter jets. You had them get called in to go encounter these objects because they didn't know what it was. And he's going to engage this thing without anything. The man's a true American, folks.
We call it two-circle fight, but it's coming up, I'm coming down. So it literally is aware we're there. There's no doubt because it mirrored me. So here it is.
It's a cool visual.
I cut across, and I get to about half mile of it, you know, so I'm about halfway across the circle. As it gets in front of me, it just goes poof, and it's gone. And it's gone like that fast.
What do you mean, poof, it's gone?
I mean exactly that. Like, it's 1 minute it's there, and the next second, it's like magic trick. So I asked the other airplane, I said, "Hey, do you guys see that?" And they're like, "It's gone. It just disappeared."
When you saw this kind of performance, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
What the hell was that?
Once back on the
No
carrier,
kidding.
Fravor's team told the next crew what had happened, and that crew took off ready to capture something on camera. And this is what they saw.
I guess the biggest question is, what do you think it is?
I honestly don't know. I don't think that we have developed that technology.
Wow.
I don't think we developed it on
That craft to be able to take off out of that signal, out of that capture is flying, folks. And there's people who go, "Oh, well, it's an air balloon. It's a bird." You know, no, it doesn't work that way. I will say that the Princeton that was with the carrier fleet that sent them to these objects is able to capture on its radar like something the size of a baseball. But a bird is not going to fly out of that IR that quickly. I mean, you're going thousands of miles an hour to get out of that thing. Furthermore, there's no exhaust. You can't say it's a plane. There's no plume coming out of the back of it. There's no wings. This guy here that's been entrusted to be a commander for the United States to fly a jet said there's no wings, there's no propulsion, there's no windows. It's just a perfectly shaped tic-tac, propane tank, whatever you want to call it. And that they caught this thing on camera, not him specifically, but another jet, What the hell is this, folks?
This planet. We still, to this day, have no idea what it was, what we saw, what we chased, what we engaged. But it was pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
A report from that
No
incident
kidding, huh?
eventually made its way to the Pentagon and crossed the desk of Luis Elizondo, the former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program.
In essence, what that program was an investigatory body looking at what we call the UAP, probably in the vernacular, it's better known as the UFO phenomenon. The bottom line here is that over the past several decades, we in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community have been noticing things in our airspace that don't have wings, they don't have cockpits, they don't have even an obvious sign of propulsion like an engine, and yet still they're able to defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity.
In 2020,
You think that guy knows a little something about a little something as well. The things that guy has to have seen and he can't tell us about it, one, has to be very frustrating, and two, just absolutely amazing as well. And look, he left his career as that job to be able to help us as the public, as American citizens, find out what the hell these things are, because look, our government didn't want to do it. So now he's taking it upon his own hands with a bunch of other people to get down to the bottom of what is taking place here.
the Pentagon declassified 3 videos, the Tic Tac video and 2 others filmed on the East Coast in January of
Look at that.
2015. Other countries have made similar public disclosures. Also in 2004, the Mexican Air Force confirmed this video was shot by one of their pilots near the coast of Baja California.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 en la pantalla.
In 2014, the helicopter from the Chilean Navy locked onto an unidentified object emitting what appeared to be some sort of gas or vapor. Both governments have said they investigated but couldn't determine what the objects were.
I've heard, I think, one of those videos with what was coming out of the back end of it. I think I heard most recently that it was a craft basically dispelling its fuel. I think the one that we saw there, most of the videos that I've seen don't have kind of that trail coming out behind it. So I think that one was debunked most recently. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the video.
To those like science writer Sarah Scholes, clipped black and white videos
The one on the bottom
leave a
right.
lot to the imagination.
Kind of
To
where
me,
I'm
the
hiding.
most interesting thing
hiding
about
it.
the videos is how little information is in them. All we have are these, 30 seconds or a minute of something totally decontextualized. And so everybody kind of gets to think whatever they want to think about them because we don't actually have enough information to form any kind of.
Now, I've been told that these clips here, they are very pixelated for us, but in terms of the actual file itself is very HD. So we're kind of seeing a crappier version of this and a very short clip of this version where a lot of these segments just keep going for a while. And as we're only seeing one, in a lot of these videos, they're talking about a fleet of these things. It's not just one. There's a bunch of them flying around our aircraft and our carriers and our military installations.
Conclusion, which is
That thing just rotates.
UFO's favorite
120
space to
knot
live in,
winds,
the-
by the way.
muddy, fuzzy
Some will
space.
just say it's an air balloon.
But will 2021 be the year all of that changes because of COVID-19?
Hidden among the many pages of the COVID-19 bill is this mandate to produce a report on unidentified aerial phenomena. What's different this time is that the military is kind of talking about them very explicitly in terms of threats. It's not like the Pentagon's deal to call things aliens, but that's kind of the angle they're coming from.
If there is a foreign adversary, let's say Russian or China or anybody else,
No
who
way.
happens to have this technology and they've had it for decades, and we in the United States have somehow been strategically leapfrogged in our technology, we've got a big problem on our hands.
Officially, the
Yeah.
clause
We have a massive problem on our hands if the Chinese or Russians have this stuff. And I don't think that's the case. One, I've heard many military guys come out and say there's no way in hell that the Russians or Chinese have this. And furthermore, if China really did have this type of technology, do you think they need to steal our intellectual technology as much as they do? I don't think so. I think even if they did, yes, there'd be some sense of stealing certain intellectual property, but in the sense of the cyber warfare that's going on, they would be so far advanced for many of us. It's mind-boggling. They only have like 1 or 2 carriers, folks. I mean, they just barely built their most recent carriers within like the 2000s or something like that. Somebody quote me on that, or at least do the research on it, because I'm pretty sure they only have 1 or 2, nowhere near in the realm of what America has. But I want to say they most recently just built either another one or it was their first one or something like that. Something interesting. Let's go ahead and continue.
Attached to December's COVID-19 relief bill, added by the Senate Intelligence Committee, calls for the military and FBI to brief committee members on what they know about UAPs within 180 days of the bill's passing. The kind of top-level briefings Elizondo says he's given before.
The three options are, is it our technology? Is it for an adversarial technology or someone else's technology? Or is it something completely different? We're 99% sure it's not foreign adversarial technology. So
it's
that only
something
leaves
different.
really one other option. It's someone or something else.
Are these three videos the only videos
Yeah.
that you know
Yeah.
of that the United States government has that shows unidentified aerial phenomena?
No, absolutely not. These are probably some of the least compelling videos. Some cases, we've seen these things 50 feet away from the cockpit.
And when you're talking about something,
These are the least compelling videos, and that they have stuff from 50 feet from the cockpit. Like I said, can you imagine what this guy has seen? He's seen some serious stuff on footage that's not being released to all of us.
that is 50 feet away. I mean,
That's
what
crazy.
could they tell from being 50 feet away?
With all due respect, Gotti, I no longer work for the United States government in that capacity. So I want to be clear that I don't want to speak on behalf of the U.S. government. And I also want to give the government time to do what it needs to do regarding this data.
But in science, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
If the UFO field wants to be taken more seriously by scientists, I think they will kind of have to move away from the types of evidence that have historically been held up as adequate, like individual sightings, because the scientists can't really do anything with the story. They need data.
I haven't seen that one
not a
before.
UFO guy. My background, I'm a former counterintelligence special agent. I was asked to do a job, which I did. However, it was my understanding and the conclusions that I came to, and by the way, every other person in the program unanimously came to the realization that these things are indeed real. And it's getting increasingly harder to keep the cat in the bag.
Do you ever think that you're going to see something like that again in your lifetime?
I don't know. I look up a lot. I mean, I'm not lying. On a clear night, you just look up and wonder. And I'll wander for the rest of my life. I think everyone does.
Crazy image, huh? Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, look, there's so much information that's coming out that I want to be able to bring to all of you. This video is, of course, a little bit old, and there's so many details that are left out of it. But the USS Nimitz, just a crazy story with aircraft flying to a certain destination, meeting this object, seeing it go from basically 80,000 feet to basically sea level in the span of a second, going to their cap point where they're supposed to be in the future, somehow having that data. And I love that there was the one lady on there talking about, she was the author of UFOs, kind of talking about that we need to get away from these individual sightings. More or less, and she didn't do a great job of explaining it, they want to be able to utilize certain video and witnesses where they're grouped together, they're credible, like these airmen and airwomen that saw it all at the same time. They've seen this on radar, they've seen it visually, they have it on multiple sensor points, it's captured on video. That's the type of information that we want. The trouble is, that's the type of information that the military has, the Pentagon has, and they're not willing to release it. Lastly, I've heard Chris Mellon, who's part of Lou Elizondo's team, amongst others, on their History Channel show, talk about how the Pentagon, during its Clinton days all the way up to basically most recently, had no idea, like high officials had no idea this stuff was even going on. Like no idea about the Nimitz, no idea about other encounters. It just wasn't getting reported. So one of the many things they're trying to do through the Senate and other avenues within our military organization is trying to create a process that this stuff can get reported to high-level officials, because they're flying over our military installations. There's been documented reports of them taking over our nuclear warheads. So a lot of stuff has been happening with these UFOs that need to be answered, not just by Congress, but also by our United States military, and brought to all of us Americans. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Supernatural Saturdays. Again, we will continue the Bald Brad Show tomorrow on Sunday, but I did want to go over something kind of fun, unique. Again, it's an opportunity to get away from the politics and the craziness of the world and have a little bit of fun here and go on a little bit of an adventure on the unexplained. I absolutely love this stuff. We're going to continue it here on the Bald Brad Show every Saturday. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you tomorrow here on the Bald Brad Show.